Hi guys, I am Vitold, and before anyone gets upset that their favorite bike may not be claimed to be totally perfect, let me just say that it's also at the moment my favorite bike, okay? So even though it's one of the two motorcycles that I personally could fall in love with at the moment, the other bike also in the same category, I am aware that it is not perfect. And I have ridden every motorcycle out of the big adventure enduros or sports tourers or whatever the manufacturers call those taller beasts with over 1 liter engines that can better or worse go off the road. And I do make this kind of video for you guys after spending some time with every one of those motorcycles, and since all of them have some points or even strictly flaws, I feel that since I have experienced them, they may also be important and useful to you guys. And for the record, I always start off with a video about what's the best about those motorcycles, and there is no video with a list shorter than 5 points, as every motorcycle does something well and also does something not so well, which you will see here. At the end of the day, the point is for you to be aware of what they are good at and what they are bad at, and to be able to weigh in the pros and cons according to your preferences. No one can tell if a bike is good or not, as that depends on what you expect from it and how and where you're going to be using it. Considering all that, if you haven't seen the video with the list of what's so great and the reasons to buy KTM 1290 Super Adventure, please also check it out to get a full perspective. That's it for explanations, and let's get down to business, as that is what we are all here for. So I'm starting with the first point, which surprised me the most, as I couldn't notice it in the pictures, but then once I got on the bike, I got a pretty mixed feeling about it. And it's that the foot pegs are unusually high. The whole bike is high. It's pretty tall, so you might expect the foot pegs to also be comfortably low at the same time, since there's space for that, and let you stretch your legs nicely, but not. Maybe they are high to keep high ground clearance, maybe they are high to let you lean a lot in high speed turns, or maybe they are so high because they've sniffed something, who knows? In other words, we will not know the reasons for that exactly, but they are significantly higher than in most other motorcycles in the category in comparison. And in the beginning of my time with the KTM, I didn't like it. Then I totally forgot about it. When I was riding, I was excited. And then after I gave the bike back, I remembered about it again. It got stuck somewhere there in my mind. But the thing is that I haven't spent hours on a highway, so even though I expect it to become not very comfortable pretty quickly, I actually haven't experienced it myself so far. So if you guys are about to spend long hours on a motorcycle, perhaps you might look for a foot peg lowering kit if there is any, a taller seat, which is already taller in this R version by 3 centimeters than in the Super Adventure S. Here it's at 88, and in the S it's at 85 centimeters. Part of that is due to taller suspension, so if this would turn out to be an issue for you and you would really want to stretch your legs more but are not taller or not much taller than me at 183 centimeters tall, then either get yourself the S version with lower suspension and get it with a taller seat, or just get yourself a taller seat anyway and struggle with the bike at a standstill, if you are not tall enough, of course. Now, the R variant should be more capable off-road, so technically I wouldn't say that it's exactly meant to be spending long hours on a highway, and I've got a proof. Just take a look at that non-existent windshield. So there you have it. And one more thing that I need to add here is a freaking bad positioning of the gear lever, which not only is high as hell, it's mounted in a tall position, but also seems pushed close to the bike's engine to the point that I couldn't find it with my foot at the beginning. Then after I knew where to look, I still had to take my whole leg up and the foot off the whole foot peg to be able to reduce gears, and that's how I proceeded till the end of my time with this KTM. I didn't like this part, but I don't think it would be a deal breaker for me considering the other advantages of the bike. However, I really wish that KTM fixed that already, made it more comfortable, or at least an option of making it more comfortable. And I hope they're listening, as this is a real customer feedback and they are only ones in the category who kind of screwed this up. The second reason why you might feel that you simply have to avoid this KTM is all the stories about reliability issues. And they are there for BMW as well, for Ducati and Yamaha as well. So malfunctions always happen, but statistically looking at the case, it seems like some manufacturers deal with them more often than others. The thing is that KTM isn't selling so many units of their motorcycles so that we would hear about the issues more simply because it's so many of their bikes on the roads. And I can tell you that it is justified to take these things into account, but I also believe two other things. First, that you don't need to give a crap with a new bike as it's got a warranty. Of course, it's a problem to play with it. And the second is that it's a motorcycle. So the approach to this kind of machine is different than to, let's say, a more functional car. If you love your toy, you just take money out of your pocket. You pay and you have it fixed if it's out of warranty. If you don't have the money, you wait till you have the money and then pay. It sucks. Of course, it sucks more when you feel like you cannot trust the machine. So this is a completely valid point here. Now, I'll tell you a story with this particular 1290 Super Adventure R, and I will just leave you with it. It was a brand new bike, pretty much straight from the factory, and I think I could have been the second person ever to ride it. There was a leak on the exhaust on the right side, just below the engine, which looks like oil. Then the next thing is that the front rim was already bent. I think so, at least. And the bike was shaking at around 150 kilometers per hour to the point that I didn't want to risk riding it quicker. It was wobbling. Or maybe it was just a tire, but I could visibly with my eyes see how even it was when it was rolling. And there was also another thing, which was the secondary key kind of thing, which despite being called still keyless, I needed to touch to a very specific point of the bike in order for it to sense it, and usually I had to give it a few tries. I only hope that the main key works as it should, but those three issues in a brand new bike, well, I promised not to comment, so I won't. The third point on my list is actually my biggest pain. I wasn't expecting the 1290 Super Adventure R, especially R, to be perfect, but I had that hope that maybe, just maybe, it will be as agile at speed as some other competitors which I enjoyed in this area so much. But now it is super well balanced, it is super stable at lower speeds, at very low speeds, and it's giving you likely the most control in those circumstances out of most of the bikes, maybe even all of them, and it would definitely be my #1 choice for city riding because of that. But it just doesn't really like very much turning at the bit higher speeds like 40 kilometers per hour and above that. In other words, it doesn't try to help you to lean left and right and enjoy the process, but rather behaves like a kid who does whatever it can not to let you do that, to not go to the preschool, to bloody not eat that meal. So you've got to fight it a little bit. After some encouragement, it does lean and turn and become stable, but if then you still want to change the direction quickly or you want to lean more and tighten the turn, don't expect this big boy to be very happy, and if it's not very happy, you won't be that happy too. So I wasn't that super happy about it. Now here's an important disclaimer, as in this specific point, we need to remember that this R version may behave differently than the S version. So my comment here, in this particular point, applies only to the R variant. With street tires, yeah, but also with bigger front and rear rims, with taller suspension and with no electronic adjustment of the suspension on the fly. But yeah, this was a sort of a disappointment. My dream is not fully fulfilled, but if you are not planning on riding on very fast, twisty mountain roads very often, it will be manageable. Just, it won't be that enjoyable. If any of you has tried the S and R version in such conditions, please do let me know about your feelings in this area. The fourth point, and yeah, I might have even overstated that the previous point is my biggest pain, because you may or may not expect the bike to be super agile, and if you are riding in the city a lot like I do, you may not benefit from that much. Yes, it's always nice as the way you turn on a motorcycle always involves leaning left or right, but there is one thing that you cannot avoid ever, at least you shouldn't. It's using your indicators. And yes, I was getting crazy riding Harley Davidson Pan America, then I was getting crazy riding Honda Africa Twin, then Moto Guzzi V85 TT recently, as they all had terrible indicator switches, which is insane on its own, but KTM managed to beat them all, since the switch in this 1290 Super Adventure just doesn't work half the time when you want to switch them off. You press it, but it does nothing. Sometimes 3, 4, 5 times you press it and your indicator is still freaking on. This is not acceptable, I think. And actually, this could be a real deal breaker for me. This is a basic thing, and I think I would prefer the switch to be uncomfortable, hidden, weirdly positioned, like in those motorcycles, but I cannot let it not work and have to press multiple times. And after every single click, I've got to redo the whole procedure and then wonder when I really should use the indicator, and maybe I will not get a ticket, maybe I will not surprise somebody by changing a lane, or maybe I will just get used to it, which is a freaking... Okay, it's just a bad idea. Anyway, I personally use the indicators as we all should, I think, most of the time. And I get very pissed at those who don't. Sometimes on a bike I can understand that you might not be able to because you're doing some crazy maneuver at the same time and requires your body to be very focused. But what KTM encourages you to do, which is not use them at all, that's not fine. So KTM, fix it! This actually is a matter of safety, and coming from an automotive industry, after my experience here on a KTM, I am convinced that it is serious enough of a flaw that KTM should recall all bikes already built and fix or replace this button in them, if that was not just the case of the bike that I was riding. If you've got the newest 1290 Super Adventure, please let me know if this is how it works or it was just my bike and it never happens in all others, then I'm going to take it all back. It really bothered me so far, and especially in such a fantastic bike. I freaking love this motorcycle. Now, moving to the fifth point, which I personally found odd and wasn't really into it, was a pretty wide front part of the original seat in this R version, and a wide fuel tank in the area where you hold it with your knees, or where you might want to hold it with your knees. I position myself on the bike close to the tank to grab it with my knees for more control. I ride pretty aggressively usually. I like that, it gives me joy, fun and so on. So I need that position. On a long trip, you might slide back and maintain a more relaxed, you may spread your legs kind of position. The thing is that if you don't want that, all you may do is fix the seat yourself or replace it with another one, while you cannot do anything about the tank. It's also the only bike in the class that gave me that not so perfect impression in this area. On shorter trips, it should be fine if you get used to it, but on longer, certain parts of your lower body, let's call it, may not be that super happy. And also, the wide seat makes it harder to reach the ground, and if you do try to do it with both legs, like I usually was trying to, then you may feel uncomfortable and as if the bike was kind of pulling your legs into opposite directions with that pressure that the seat generates on its edges. And I think I would need to have it modified, as I haven't given birth to anyone in my life yet, so I'm not that wide in that specific area of my body. Still, to my defense, on no other motorcycle in the class have I felt it. Actually, I did have the same complaint when I was riding a 2021 Yamaha Tracer 9 GT. So yeah, there you have it. Maybe the impression is different in the S version though, and I could count on that, but here not so nice in the R, so please make sure that you can live with it or just have a plan of how to fix it. The sixth point may be silly, but it's definitely hard to understand for me, and I'll get straight to the point and say that it's about the colors. In 2022 1290 Super Adventure R, which comes in one color, while the S comes in two, which aren't also very cool looking. In the S, I would have a real problem with it if I wanted an S, and in fact I would actually rather go myself for the S version generally, not because of colors. I love the color scheme of the R, but what's the point if I couldn't have the S in the same color, but just two types of gray? One gray with some orange and the other one with slightly more orange. That's boring, isn't it? It doesn't, I think, suit the character of this bike. Maybe they do whatever they can to make manufacturing easy, but then why would there be so many singular options to choose from? That's not making things quicker in terms of building those bikes. I want some nice colors to choose from. Yeah, I can't paint it myself, but That's not how it should be. The seventh reason for which you might want to skip the 1290 Super Adventure, I think some people might be considering because of that, is that it's propelled by chain. I don't like this solution myself in this class of motorcycles, knowing that BMW and Triumph can give us fantastic drive shafts, and they are all priced basically the same, perhaps with KTM being even the most expensive. And I know that this may be a deal breaker again for some of us who actually want to ride a lot and do some longer trips at once, especially on the S version. So you've got to buy and carry that freaking spray can with you everywhere and play with it every other stop when refueling, or try to do it less often, hoping that the chain won't stretch too much, which we know that it can stretch too much in this KTM, especially with 160 horsepower and 138 newtons of torque. Or you may order an automatic Scott oiler straight from KTM and then refill it only once in a while, which is kind of a solution. I had a bike with an automatic system, and it does fix the annoyance, but you still have to check the fluid level from time to time, refill it, you have to check chain tension, there is still a mess, you still have to fight when cleaning that area of the bike, and you still have to buy and replace the chain after some time. And if you go and do some off-road in a hardcore way, you may damage the hose of that Scott oiler system or some other part of it, or any other device of this type that's applying oil. I'm a fan of a drive shaft and forgetting about it. Just make it easy, make it enjoyable. I don't want to play with it. Would it be a deal breaker for me? Considering the advantages which I stated in the other video, no. But again, if BMW and Triumph both can give us that convenience, then I would expect KTM to be at least able to design it, to at least try. Why not? The 8th point applies only to the R variant, and I'm just mentioning to you guys as most other competitors have this part handled. And the Super Adventure S has it as well, and it's about the seat height. Here in the R, it is not adjustable. There's a different seat in the S, and you might move it 2 centimeters up from 85 to 87 centimeters. Not much more for me to say other than for me, those 88 centimeters in the R version are actually almost perfect. I could touch the ground with my both feet, not fully flat, but close. So if it wasn't that wide in the front, it would be perfect in terms of height. I think I'm 183 centimeters tall, maybe 184 if some pretty brunette is asking. Now in the 9th point, a fact that's not a flaw exactly, but is just the way this bike was intended to be. But if you don't comply with it, you might have to forget about riding it, or at least riding it and feeling confident, and feeling comfortable, and feeling in control. Well, it's simply quite tall, like many other motorcycles in this class. If it doesn't suit you, go for the lower S version. If you still cannot handle that, try a version with a lowered seat. The R version actually feels very heavy when you are moving it, just pushing it like that. Riding it, it feels light and fun until the speeds go up, and then you feel its weight when you get into faster corners. It gets more sloppy, but right after setting off or maneuvering between the cars, it's fantastic and totally complies. From what I've experienced, it's perfect actually. It's probably the best. Yet when you try to push it and go faster in the bends, man, it gets much harder than with other motorcycles. Yes, it is top heavy with high center of gravity, but I'm thinking that maybe this weird fuel tank is causing that. Anyway, be prepared and start going to the gym right now. Don't forget about the deadlift, as if you're planning to take it off-road, you may need some practice, and I'm not even curious about how this will be. And I consider myself pretty fit and strong, you know, bench press 140 kilos, but lifting this KTM scares me. And with the last point on my list, which might not be exactly fair to the bike itself as a construction, but I've got a feeling that KTM isn't exactly in the best shape as a manufacturer now in 2022 at least. They don't have bikes available. They struggle to provide the dealers with test motorcycles. It took well over 3 months for the local dealer, the only one in the capital city, to get the 1290 Super Adventure as a demo bike, and it's like half of the year is gone already. Soon we'll have winter and everything will be gone. And damn, it came with a bent wheel, a leak, and that screwed up indicator switch. Maybe that's a standard, don't know about that. So my ass, this is not a very reassuring. And this somehow raises my question of what happens when those dealers get shut down since they've got no bikes to sell. How do they make money? No products means that there's no way to make money on sales. Now, if you don't sell bikes, they cannot come back to you to pay for the service and for the parts and accessories. It is as simple. So then, if I manage to get one, I buy one, and the dealer is gone, where would I service it or get parts from? And these bikes are not as simple to fix yourself, and also not every mechanic knows or wants to work on them. It is hard to find KTM's official websites in Google, which means that they don't even do a good job marketing-wise. And to me, that means that somebody doesn't maybe care as much as they could or even should, if I'm noticing it. And I'm a fan basically now after riding the 1290 Super Adventure. So what if they don't care about me and my bike at some point? This truly could worry me. I even have their umbrella, look, and I have a mug, and I have a backpack, and I had a cap too, but I don't wear those, so I'm not counting it. I really want to believe that KTM can handle their dealers' network and customers, but right now in 2022 it looks like a question mark. BMW is doing fine, Ducati is doing fine, even freaking others are doing fine without mentioning anybody. I just hope that it's better in your markets and you don't need to be bothered by those thoughts. Seriously, the bike is freaking so great, it is so enjoyable, so much fun. I think that it could be top 3 in the category right now. And also, if you made it all the way till here, guys, please take a deep breath, make yourself a hot tea or cold tea or hot vodka or cold vodka, and check the video with what's the best about this bike, so that you've got a full perspective and can make a very informed decision. Now, of course, I recommend to test ride any motorcycle before buying it, if your dealer has it, of course. So that's it from me. Tell me what you guys think about those points, and see you in the comments and in the next video. Bye.